Let's start. Uh, First part of this session, we covered the basics of JavaScript language. So we will go into the more advanced concepts. So let's summarize the previous this scope because it's going to be important today. So by default, the function scope, you call a function, the default scope is Windows scope with like the parent object. And instead of function, this always points to the current object scope. So and defaults to window. And you can change this behavior using two functions. One is call, the other is apply. So you can call any function using dot. Function can be any function dot call, and then you give any scope. It can object. Scope always an object, and you can provide multiple arguments. So basically your function will be called in that particular scope. Similar way, the apply function, the only difference is in case of call, it's passed as an of arguments, and in case of apply, it's multiple arguments you can specify. Here, switch the these two things. The both not same. The
What's that?
the kind apply. I looks I switched it because in call I guess you can specify any number of arguments. In case of apply, you have to specify an array of arguments. But like offline, it's just
one takes like number.
Yeah, any number of arguments.
In a usual way, the other one takes array.
Yeah. So now let's talk how we can use functions as classes. So you can see you can define function, and inside function you can use this variable which will always point to the current object scope. Then use this or function you can create object. So usually it's again like how we create objects in Java type of language. So you say poll new policy, you provide the arguments, and it will return you an object. So and object is like a separate instance. So it works more like classes. Okay. Any questions?
This function to attribute.
So similarly, this dot policy name is as an attribute. Similarly, you can say this dot any method name is equal to function.
Tell me one thing.
Yeah.
Here this defaults to window.
Or if you call this function the policy without using any new keyword, you would likely call the policy.
Okay.
Then this will point to the window object.
Okay.
So if
but
there is
because here we are doing new, so
new.
internally it might be passing the policy object as such. The
So,
one object will be passing.
No, let me say it like this. Whenever you use a new, this JavaScript creates a new object, blank object, and takes this pointer to the object that newly created blank object.
Poll one is basically referring to.
And then if you those properties, like we have added one policy name, so it will be added to that object. So that I have shown in that if you try to print it, poll1.name, then you can see that. If you can like show you this thing in the browser. I have copied. Oh yeah, it's there. So let me add a breakpoint here. So oh, it's coming fine. Okay. My mistake. I'm using the different thing.
For
Okay.
name and name.
Yeah. So maybe weekly. I will fix this in slides and then probably.
This is a problem. JavaScript doesn't complain.
No,
Python also doesn't come.
complain.
Yeah,
Because
same way.
see, in case of JavaScript, when introduced it was not meant for creating software. It was meant for accessing DOM. So it's very it tries I mean for
Browser differences and all that are
yeah.
there at times, so it's okay.
This time if we in the console you can see the first thing is access policy and so
Call that method if we say this dot policy name equal to. So property on a window object
doesn't
doesn't
sense.
make
Those,
any sense.
so we don't do that normally. We normally
But it can
use
still do that.
yeah, you can still do that. Then it will be like a global variable.
Okay. So can we use in J2E if you talk about in the server side like if you want to pass some values, so there are global scopes are there. Window can use as a global scope. Suppose somebody want to share some data,
Yeah, we'll talk about variable scope also. We have only talked about the function scope as of now. We'll talk about variable scope also. Okay. And but if you only want to use function as a more like function, not as a constructor function, then we normally don't use this inside of that function. So now let's talk about variable scope. So in JavaScript, if you see there is two scopes. One is local scope and the other is global scope. Global scope is when you define any variable, either of any function inside in your code, simply say var on whatever is here. Even if you don't say var, it will default scope is Windows scope. So the global scope and is available across all the functions, no matter how many nesting of the function is there, but it's available. Second, the local scope. When you define a variable using a var keyword, so the var here is mandatory. Otherwise, it will think you are trying to define a global scope. So a function, when you declare a variable using var, then it's created inside that function scope.
Duplicate happens, what is the precedence?
Local always gets the precedence over the global one. Then if you define a function inside a function, and then you can go at as many level deep as you want. So function inside function is fun. So whenever you define a function inside a function, all variables which are available in the parent function are also available in function. So in case of G access Y without passing, we need not to pass the Y. So that is like quite mysterious kind of behavior that is called closures. We'll see more details in the next slide. So that's a very amazing thing JavaScript. You not to pass this variable and not either, but because there inside that function. So that by definition it's like when the function gets defined, all the variable available in that particular scope, and if you use them inside your function, then JavaScript binds those variables with your function definition. So then they are available inside your function. Okay.
Any variable you define without var, so
that to the global scope.
and if you define
Anywhere inside function wherever it is.
if it is without a var,
That's why
become
you
global.
always, that's what we were discussing in that slide. You always define variable using var. Other scope will be global scope, and it will be all.
So any variable we want with a global scope, it's better to define outside any function with a var keyword.
And again, you should not define too many global variables. That's another thing. Don't define, means try to avoid that as possible. We are clear this slide?
Lexical scopes.
Lexical is like code by scope. So it's like if you solve these rectangles, so the outermost is a global scope. Then one is the scope of inside the function f, and the innermost rectangle shows the scope of the function g inside the. So that's and scope chain. So let's talk a little about scope chain. So every time when you try to access any variable, what JavaScript does is it tries first checks the current local scope. Variable is there in the local scope. If not, then it tries to go to the level, the parent level. If there, then it goes to the. It can many level nesting.
Right.
Okay, and it goes to the global, and if it's still not there, then it says it's undefined. So that is variable lookup chaining. So that's which we discussed, this clausers. These are like, see this code also. So inside the function foo, we are defining a function bar, and in bar we are using this property x. The point to remember here, we are not passing the x. So as discussed, because x is by default available because x was there when we defined the bar. So when okay, and one more statement here, JavaScript, we discussed it on that day also, previous slide. You can return anything from function. So we are returning a function from a function. Okay. So then when we are returning bar, we are giving a pointer to a function kind of. Okay, which points to this bar function. So when we created the variable var hello, what it will do? It will alert hello. Okay. So first is go inside foo. So value of x becomes hello, and like this, and it returns bar. So the function. Okay, the thing is like now what I haven't added in the slide is you have to call this function basically bar underscore ref underscore one, because now bar underscore ref underscore one points to a function, not
alert.
Yeah, it alert unless you call it.
No, should I alert or
no?
I think if pointed to bar.
Yeah. So bar underscore ref underscore one is a pointer to this bar function with a value of x as hello.
Okay, how will I call alert from that bar function, from that reference?
You call alert function, or you need to just call function bar ref and one, then it will alert hello.
If we call
Okay, let's
at the first.
okay guys, let's do the code, because I have added this code also. It's there. The thing which we haven't is we haven't call this thing. It will see that. So we need to call this function. Okay.
Some value, no?
Value we passed. That's the beauty of it. Let me.
No, doesn't take any argument.
Is not taking any argument, but when we called foo, it does the bar with the value of x, because time we pass the x. This looks bit strange, and that's what I'm trying to explain here. So as you can see, the console.log, the hello word is not there. Okay, because here I have replaced alert with a console.log, which is much clean. So now let's call these functions.
Suppose we call foo. Okay, so just go and say return bar. It will not get into the
basically
bar, right?
What foo is doing, foo is creating a function with argument of hello. Now bar can print only hello. That's it. Unless we'll call bar separately. Okay, I'll explain it more, because these are one of the most confusing things inside JavaScript. So here are the okay, and let's go to console. Now see hello and word. So what is happening? Let me again explain it. When we first called the foo function with the argument of as hello, so the x becomes hello. Okay, then it goes inside it. So what it when we say return bar, so what the JavaScript does is it passes this value hello in the x and returns this function. So bar ref1 and bar ref2 are basically two functions, two separate functions. Okay, with hello is already there as a value of x.
But do we do such kind of coding?
Yes. It's used very much. See how helpful. For example, you are create event handler. Say for example on click, I want to do something. So the thing when you add, we will talk more about event handlers. So how we add them and how we pass the values and all. So the thing is, the problem is JavaScript always calls the event handlers in the Windows scope. So your class or object, and you are expecting you must call your object function and all the object properties and what's there in that particular object. And but in the Windows scope, this will point to Windows. So at that, what we do is we try to create a function instead of directly setting a function as an event handler. Try to create something like this. We dynamically create a function, and on that function with passing that whatever current scope inside. So in case JavaScript will attach that current scope or whatever variable we want to add with the function. So way to add handlers. We'll discuss more about it. But this thing is very useful. So always remember that whenever you are defining a function inside a function, all the variables available outside it in its parent scope is available.
So in fact, it is just not available inside, it gets attached with it.
Yeah. And it's a kind of a link. It's not a it's not a value, it's a pointer.
Because as hello, now hello is always associated with it. With that object. It's not like x. The value of x is like something, it got attached to the function, it will be with it.
Okay.
What will happen if I change the x value in the bar?
In bar,
reference it will get changed in the function foo also if I access it after calling this function. So
first of all, as soon as the foo's execution ends, there is nothing other than a function with of x as hello in the first. I'm talking about the first call, but everything goes away as soon as the execution ends for the foo. After, so the only thing which is left is a function bar with already a value of x. You were saying what will happen if we change the value of x?
You put enter, say x is equal to
here.
No, not here. Within bar.
Within bar.
or add some append some string.
We want to add it before console.log or after?
It's after it also.
So see what
something in the function. You can
do it x is equal to, I'll tell you.
Whatever, say 20.
And then comma bar underscore ref underscore 1 once again after the.
Okay. Something. Okay, something. Though.
Now you call again.
This. So again print hello, and I will explain why.
Print hello?
Yes. So we show two hellos. One hello and something.
No, something here, no.
right.
Oh yeah. Okay. The x inside that function. Yeah, and okay, it's again proved my point only. So I was wrong in. It's always a reference. It's not a value. Yeah. So if we check, it will also change. Okay, man, that's
that reference gets attached with the.
Yes. Okay, so let's go to the next thing. Next thing is prototype property. And to variable scope. let's go ahead. So in JavaScript, we have a property prototype, which is there with every function. And whenever we define a function, all the property type available. Like example, you can see we created one function, and when we func.prototype, we can add more properties or methods to it. With detail, what is prototype, what it does, and all. By default, remember and this function.prototype up to this much, it's an object. By default, everything inside a JavaScript is an object. So function.prototype is also an object. So, for example, when we created a blank function and we haven't added it inside the prototype unless it's a blank object. Okay, so if we try to print it at this line, if we say console log function.prototype, it will console the blank object because we haven't added anything. If you want, I have this code.
Default ones.
Wait. It's there, slide 29. So, slide 29. Slide 32. Slide, I guess 32. Let's head up. Okay. So at this point, I have one which we find, and we haven't defined the so something like func.prototype. Object. It's other than it further points to the prototype of its constructor, which further contains a lot of properties, that is default object. I will explain that is in more detail. But if you say, means that is Java tried to show so much, but if you function and function dot blank object, so there's nothing inside it other than it's so these property is in the next slide I've explained, but there is nothing else other than this. Let's back to the presentation, and when you add function.prototype.a, so now is added to that object. Now when you create an object of use this function, this console.log.a is already okay. Maybe I have used a bit complex example because I have also added this .a just to show like how this that are like the which owned by the object, and there are some properties method which are owned by the or the function or the class. So in class and functions are same. So you can attach some properties which are like common properties. These are more like kind of static. So inside the object, so every object is okay. Let me use the other slide. That's why I've added all those images. But otherwise it's very hard to describe them. So function is an object, and every object is like a hash map, key value pair. So it is also an object with a special property prototype. Okay, and which is further an object. Okay, every object which you create using this function has a secret link. In Mozilla based browser, it's available this link using __proto. I will see how it works. So that's to the prototype of your class or the constructor function. So what is there?
Copy kind of thing.
It's copy again. It's a reference, and it's like a pointer. So that's why I pointed it to that, because even if you change that one in the prototype, function prototype, all objects value will instantly get changed. What if? So what? There's already a property called a inside that object also. like we did in our example. What I did. Yeah. Like for example, I have already added a dot A. This dot A is objects property. Okay. So objects property always override the functions prototype property. So here we do a console.log. The value is 10, the object's value. Then the next line, when we delete the object.a, this is the way we delete any property of an object in JavaScript.
We detach the property.
We remove that from that hash map. You can say that key is removed from that hash map. So now that object.a start pointing to the prototype property. And inside that object, you need not to say object.prototype. No, it's with object.a only. So here, like it's a property of the object, but actually it's not a property of that object. It's a property of its parents, maybe the constructor function prototype. Let's look at this picture clearly. So you define using this dot a will inside this object hash map, which is an instance of this function. And whatever you define using function.prototype, that inside the function's prototype object, and from object there all these properties are available. Oh, that's wrong. That is wrong. That is just I will update this. This a.10 should be there inside this below one. That's a mistake. Okay.
So why is prototype used?
Why prototype used? Because prototype is like a common. Okay, let's go to the next slide where we have defined prototype to create a class. Here, see what's the advantage. So you define a function A, and then you all the object specific property and method is using dot a. So they'll be separate. Whatever is this dot a, if you have two instances, they will have separate memory location and they can contain separate values. What you define using function.prototype.b or any either property or method, they are shared because the link
kind of thing the
static.
Like,
you can call it static, or you can say during inheritance different objects share the same properties of the ancestor
constructor function, whatever, or class. So JavaScript provides basically two types of property method. What you can add to the constructor function using prototype, and then they all will be shared across all the instances. And then you can have using this dot those instances.
Prototype is called as constructor function.
Function called as a constructor function. Okay. A function can be used as a constructor function. Prototype is a special property of function object. Prototype only available to function objects. No object can have object dot prototype. It is function object's property, which is object can be shared across the instances. That's one thing. The other thing, it's a secret link like which constructor function is used to create this object. Okay. This is getting key. We'll go back to the previous slide. But this you can see in a object.a. Oh man, there's no way.
From object A, how can I access B?
Say object.b.
Object.b.
It's if there is already this dot b, then this dot b will be used. If this b is not there, then it will look into the prototype.
Like Java inheritance is using.
Okay. So, and then the advantage using prototype, it is common. So, for example, you can define all your functions using prototype because you want to like. Otherwise, if you use define your method using this dot method is something, then all the definition will be shared across all the instances. So it will like waste the memory because let's say you have thousands of objects of that class, so that space is like wasted. You have put that method addition inside the prototype, and then it will be shared across all the instances. Okay, and some common property also, which you want to like kind of static some counter or something that you can put inside the prototype.
Using prototype,
And more
something is equal to function. That is also a function. So you have
yeah,
attached a common
it's
method.
treat like a method in a
Yes, it
JavaScript.
is a method.
Yeah.
So when you need to call it, you'll say object a dot.
Exactly. Do something. It will work without any problems. And one important, means interesting property, even the prototype, because it's a link after the when you instance is created. Even if you change the prototype of the function, the change will be updated in all objects.
I do something, I can access only the prototype variables, not the object variables.
So even if you do that, it will pick the for instance which you have called.
No, there is something called what question like.
To do something, can I access a?
Can I guess?
This dot a value.
From the no.
No, right?
No, it's not available because inside
A will not be available, but B suppose
B, yeah, it is class variable.
no,
yes.
but suppose B is defined in function A also, then A will.
Now what you are saying? No, by default inside the prototype,
you cannot.
Just want. Wait a second. So you can.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. So what when
Yes, we can. In fact, it's not a
okay.
language, right?
Let me
will not complain you for A, this dot A,
No,
because but while accessing, it will be available because it's a object of that.
Okay, let me explain this.
We can.
So what will happen inside the do something if you use this dot something? When called this do dot something with a scope of object A, this will point to the object A. Okay, same like using doing dot call and then you pass object A as a scope and the arguments.
Function
time A will be available.
Yeah.
So
what we call with function A only scope function A without creating an object.
Then it will if there is no scope, then it will point to the window. Yes. Okay, go back. We have two more. So one fact about prototype is we already discussed. It's common across all the instances of that object, of that class or the function. And prototype is dynamic. If you make any changes in the prototype object, that will be reflected in all instances. Now talk about these two special properties. This underscore proto. Other is constructor. First of all, these are objects properties. These are functions properties. That is instance properties, for example. And underscore proto is available, not available in IE. So, and what this does, so let's see the code. We created one function. Then we added a function dot prototype dot a10. Then we created an object of that function. Now object A contains 10 because it's in the prototype. So object dot underscore proto is also points to that the object like a link. So in Mozilla based browser, it's available. Even as a JavaScript programmer, you can access it. In IE, they don't allow you. So if you want to access the prototype, you say object constructor. Means for a constructor function that has used to create this object. And in our case, this is func. So basically object dot constructor dot prototype is same as function dot prototype. Func prototype. Okay. So both pointing to the same object. So that you can access them. That is very helpful when you have an object but you don't know the construct function. So using these properties, you can, it's kind of a reverse engineering. So use object, you can get to know about the function or the class, and then you can create more objects.
But always know func, right?
What?
Func will be always aware of it, right? What is the function name or class name?
Aware of what? Function, if you want to access this prototype object using function, then you can always say function dot prototype. If you want to access that thing from an object or an instance of that function, then you have to use either object dot underscore underscore proto underscore underscore, or you can say object dot constructor dot prototype. This object dot constructor available in Mozilla also. So now
three statements are same only?
Yeah, they are all three. Function dot prototype dot a and forgot dot a, function dot prototype, object dot underscore underscore proto, object constructor dot prototype, all pointing to the same memory location, to the same object basically. So like three ways you can access the same object.
Okay, just to do this.
Yeah, it depends upon your use case. For example, you are writing inside a let's say inside a code, and you are means like you are inside a function, you are writing a, and somebody passed you some object. Now you know what's there in the prototype. So you don't know what the class or the whatever is the constructor function, but still use the prototype property. That's why I have provided these links. This will be seen how we can use prototype to create class kind of thing. So the prototype provides more common kind of storage inside each function or class. This is another interesting concept, how we actually use prototype chaining to inheritance inside JavaScript. Because in JavaScript there is nothing called extends or something. You could directly extend any function. So the way you do is you create a function, let's say for an A, and again you can define as many properties, this dot A, or even A dot prototype dot something, A dot prototype dot do something, whatever. Then you want that should in A. Okay, so what you do is you define a simple function function and attach all those extra means which is there definitely, or you want to override using dot or prototype dot whatever, not dot this dot and then you say b dot prototype is A. So new will return an object which has all the properties and methods of function A. So E dot prototype will start from whatever is inside A. So everything there, and then start adding new properties. You can then you can say B dot prototype dot child property, and then add multiple properties to the prototype also. And then we create an object where X is new B. So B will contain there in the A, and in addition whatever is there in the child class. This is standard way. And, statement B dot prototype dot constructor is again B. This is kind of a hack, because what happens, create B dot new do this, and B dot prototype is new A. Your B dot constructor, actually not B dot constructor, your object dot constructor, because constructor is a property of an object. So if you remove this line B dot prototype dot constructor dot B, what will happen when you do a new B and then you try to using X dot constructor, it will start pointing to the A. So that thing we want that it should point to the this constructor which we have defined in the line number 2. So we have to do the like this. B prototype dot constructor is again pointing to back to the B. So you have your B with all the properties of A, and your because you definitely want it to point to your child class, not to the parent class.
Right.
Yeah, kind of hack. In JavaScript, all these things, object orientedness, inheritance, all using some kind of hacks. It's not there in the language as a standard way. On the right side of the image, you can always see. So we have X, whose underscore proto. We just discussed what is underscore proto. It's an object property which points to the constructor function's prototype, which is to B dot prototype. Okay, and then it's further inside it points to A prototype. So this is called prototype chaining. So what is there in A's prototype? The very resolution happens. So let's say it has something like XA. What it to do the JavaScript? But first it will check inside instance variables or the properties. Whether something like this dot this A is available. It's not. Then it it goes inside b dot prototype. Then it looks if it's there inside the b dot prototype. If it's not, then it goes to a dot prototype, and ultimately all objects inherit from the JavaScript default object class. You guys create an object using where my object is new object. All objects get, this is like java.lang.object. So that's like the parent for all objects. So JavaScript, that is object class with capital O.
Here we have b dot prototype is equal to new a. So okay.
Yeah. So
and we can also have b dot prototype dot some function also.
But okay, that you define after this statement. Okay. Because it's like you are rewriting the whole prototype object. When you dot prototype is new a, you are in the object and you are overriding the b dot prototype with that object. Yeah. Related to prototype property. But you will work in that, then you will start remembering all these concepts, like what was there, what was there in the prototype, how object, what is function. So all these concepts will come.
So after first line we say a dot prototype dot some do something equal to function. That is also a function. So what will happen? That function will be available inside of B.
Even actual object of the end, it will be available. That's the thing we are trying to do. So we are trying to create one object or class, and then to extend it. So everything is there inside the A should be there inside the B's object. Okay. Now JSON, you must be already everyone aware about it, but it's a Java object notation. So if you use these gets that define array, and if you use curly braces, that creates an object. So below code you can see you can define object using this. This is like saying where object is new object, that is object. So it's like a shorthand way of creating object, and then you can do whatever you want to do. So just want to create one object, not some class or something, you can directly say my object, and you don't need a new here. That is point to remember. Whenever you use this syntax, it automatically adds a new thing. Okay. So how we
can you go back?
Yeah.
The curly braces and instead object A is equal to 10.
So like saying you inside the object property, it's like saying this dot A is function. You have to say this dot A. In the hash map, you are using one more key A.
So this kind object curly is this a key? Is it a code object and curly braces? So is it like you're defining multiple variables at one shot?
Where
the second statement, object space curly brace.
Yeah, this is the way of creating blank object inside JavaScript without using any new keyword or something. Statement is equivalent to where object is equal to new object. Okay, if you are confused, let me show inside the browser. It'll be much more easier. So let's say go here. So a new default object. Oh, what is not defined? Just defined it. Man. Oh, it's like we have paused the execution. Oh, come on. Now, because the execution was paused, so because of that, it happened. Then you say A, and it created an object with only one special property underscore proto, which is pointing to the object to create this A. Similarly, you can say where A is shorthand way of achieving the same thing. Then you say A, no difference. same object. How this JSON thing is useful, because we use the JSON as a like data like an XML data definition kind of language, and you can pass the data, and JavaScript can parse it directly and create object and array out of it.
Can you say where A is equal to this curly, inside curly braces, can you pass some value?
Yeah, that's the why you will create a blank object. That's the point. Let's you say key. You have seen this so many times. Key 1, 1, comma, key K2. Let me do that. Colon, some 3 or string AA. Okay, and now let's try to print A. It's an object with 2 properties, key K2 and key 1. Okay. So go back to the side. So that is how we can create object using JSON syntax. And then more way of creating objects and classes using JSON notation. So you say my class is function. You pass argument. Those are constructor function arguments. Some properties where here using that clauser thing is JSON basically. So I have used one underscore, that is it's a kind of private property, but it's not like if we add underscore JavaScript will think it's a underscore. It's just for the convention kind of. Okay, so this underscore property 1 and underscore method, you can use them inside the definition defined in scope. Okay, let's get back to the means like go to this return statement first. Then we'll talk about this property. So we are trying to do here. We are trying to return an object. See, we used curly braces start and curly braces end. Okay, and then doing all the key value, the what key and values. The same way we just defined the object A with key 1 and key 2. So we are to create an object and we are returning it. Okay. And inside this definition, let's say this method, we can do all this priming, because by default this underscore, this under property and underscore method is not available either global scope on the this pointer, because we have added them as a this. So that's the way of achieving kind of private properties or method inside JavaScript when you define classes, because define using var, they are only available inside the local scope. Okay, that makes sense. And when we do the like var my object is new my class, so what do it return me an object with a public property and public method. So what I will get is my object dot public property, my object dot public method. In that method code, I can use my private variables. Okay, and then they will be available because they were available at particular time of definition. That is the clauser thing.
So the object public underscore method, when it is returned, so that we can say dot we can call this object, right?
We can call public method, not the underscore method.
So public method will call, so internally it will call underscore method.
That's the way of, that's how it happens in Java and all also. Yes. Public methods can call private members, but private members or methods or properties should be available to the object scope. Okay. Questions in JSON? No. Let's talk a little about Ajax also, because that is a part of JavaScript. So Ajax is asynchronous JavaScript and XML, or some people say advanced XML. So now mostly people are not using XML with Ajax. So XML is just a data transfer format here. So you can format your plain text, HTML, JSON. Mostly we in SMX we are using JSON here. So basically what in place it's like you can make a background request from your page or from your JavaScript code server and can get the data. and you can update your page or whatever you want to do with that. You can even perform some action, like you have saved some form, so that save action can happen on the server also. So register data, you can get some data. To achieve the Ajax functionality, browsers added this XML HTTP request object. It's a object which is available in browsers like Mozilla, Firefox, Safari, and all the Mozilla-based browsers. Not available as a native object like this in below 7 options. So they to achieve this functionality is must have something called ActiveX objects, which is like a add-on to the browser functionality. So Microsoft introduced it long back in the version 5 or something. So basically, when you say, okay, let's type of XML HTTP request dot is defined, you try to use these ActiveX objects. There are 2, 3. So it happens when you say this browser doesn't support XML HTTP requests. That's the way of creating this object. Then after this line, you can always say where my XHR is new XML HTTP request. Okay. And in terms of design wise, how Ajax looks is, so what has to happen in the old days? Every time you used to click some link or submit some form, whole request to the server, then the response come and your whole page used to refresh and reloads, and then it was the new page. That should be the old way. Now, as you're using Gmail, Facebook, or even our Prism or SMX, here it's like client can do some user activity. Our Ace engine is nothing, just a JavaScript code, can handle that, and background it can make a request, and whenever it thinks, for example, if you want, even if there is no user activity, even JavaScript code can decide, like, okay, based upon some timer or something, it's time to refresh the data. So it can make a call to the backend in the background and get the fresh data. So that difference between Ajax kind of application and old web applications. Quickly see a very simple code of Ajax. So you have an XML HTTP request object instance, access I have used. You can use any word. It's like a variable name. And you have to set a on state change of handler. So whenever ready state is a property, below in the fourth we are using it. 4 values 1, 2, 3, 4, which points to like whatever is the state or request object. So 1 like initialize, 2 is like making request, 3 is something like pending, and 4 is the response has been come. So you set a handler. So whenever your request ready state changes, it calls function, this function. Just go to the next line because that makes more sense. It's hr.open, it's a request, call the URL .xml, and this is true that here the asynchronous thing comes, because all those Ajax requests, they happen asynchronously, like browser creates that objects and returns the control back to the whatever is the JavaScript thread or something. Don't wait for the response, the thing is. What it does, it has something called ready state, and internally changing the state of that thing. And it allows you to add a handler to that on ready state change event. You check, okay, when the ready state is 4, that means the request is complete and the response is available. There you use the hr.response text. Okay.
Response text means what?
It's text response. The response body. You can access hr.response headers. So you can also access the headers.
This is on ready state change.
Yes.
It's like the response has come back, right?
So it's like on ready state change. Whenever the ready state value changes, call my function.
Condition you can use whatever you're interested.
Okay.
So
you are interested only in the ready state is 4. means when the response has been
But
come.
but when is this called?
In the bottom line, xhr.send the time when you make a request.
Okay, that can be like that code xhr.send can be based on one condition, like a button of click of a button.
This code is like we'll see in the next slide how we add the event handler. So like you can add this code inside a click of a button. Whenever the click happens, call this code. That code internally create a XML HTTP request object.
Adding URL and onto this.
URL is page.xml, the second argument in the open. It
is the URL.
URL.
It
can be like
here it is a relative one.
Yeah, it's a relative. You can use the absolute URL. The only thing in case of Ajax, you want to make a request to a third-party server. Means you request only to the server from where current page is coming. For example, you have loaded one page from cisco.com. You can't request to any google.com. Region policy in JavaScript. Yeah. Let's come to the event handling part because quickly. So events are, so there are various types of events in JavaScript like clicks, key events, and then like browser load, unload, and so there are various kind of events that happens inside browser, and you want to do something whenever an event happens. So for that you add some event handler, which whenever this thing happens, call my function. And inside that function, I will do something. So the thing to understand about the events inside the browser is that is page with the outermost element is as a HTML. Inside that you have body element, and inside body you have, let's say, some div. Inside the div you have some. So there will be like multiple level of elements. So now, and let you click on some button inside at this level. Let's consider this picture. So how this event propagates, because you can handle this event at so in Mozilla-based browsers, first it calls event handler for HTML on a capture. I have used the term capture. We'll see how we can use things capture and bubbling while adding event handlers. So first, it means internally kind of capture event handler for the HTML, then body, then P, and then the most element input exactly the event got happened, and then again bubbles back. It goes to the P, and HTML again. So it's like two times you can add a handler either in the capture phase or in the bubbling phase. That depends upon your requirement. We'll see how. So guys, makes more sense here. We add handlers, use codes, and all. Dojo does all this dirty stuff. You need to worry about all this thing. You say Dojo on click and you add your event handler and free. But understand JavaScript more more. Yeah. So this is important. Say okay, element dot. So add event handler. This is for Mozilla compatible browsers, and whatever is the event handler name, whether it's a click or a mouse enter or a mouse out or key press, the event name. Second thing, your handler function. This is your function you have written somewhere. And then third is a Boolean capture, whether it's in the capture phase or in the bubbling phase. So default, it's a bubbling phase. Okay, so capture by default is false.
Bubbling phase means this kind of thing.
Look, go back to the picture. Bubbling phase is the green line. When the event is going back to the means topmost element. So first, it's
It's little bit confused. So suppose someone has clicked on the button.
Yeah, exactly. That this image is inside this is what is happening. Your input, I have done some click. So what browser checks, is there some capture phase event on HTML element? If it is, it will call that event handler.
sequence you can maintain.
In the sequence you can add. So
you can add one function at the capture phase and other function at the bubbling.
Exactly.
So that they execute sequentially.
Yes.
That's all.
So what is capture phase and bubbling phase?
Yeah, that's this image says. So whenever some event happens, I think this is the way of event handler. So say, okay, whatever is the event, what element? First thing is element. So which element you want to add the event handler? So in this, whether no. Whether you want to add on the HTML part, HTML element, or you want to add on the body or on the P or input, you can add at any level. So no matter it means even if you can handle all the events at the HTML level.
So why would I add something at the capture level and something at the bubbling level?
That's based upon your design. Let me tell you how it happens. For example, if you have opened some div and click somewhere else on the page and to remove the menu. For example, somewhere some drop down menu came and then you click somewhere else on the your drop down menu goes back. Yes. So these kind of thing, because now your event is happening somewhere else, but to inform your menu, whatever is the menu thing, that you should disappear now. Yeah. So that's the thing here. Event can you want to handle the event at any level, no matter where exactly it happened. Whether it happened on the HTML level or it happened inside the input box. You based upon your application, you need to handle it at any level.
True, but then you both capture and the reverse.
So it's like browser. In case of Mozilla based browser. Okay, let's first. It's getting confusing. Okay. Let's first check the I. In I there is nothing called capture. Only bubbling phase is there. So first understand that will make more sense. So in I you say element, whatever is the element you want to add. What is the event name, mouse ever, or the type of event, and what is the handler function. So forget about capture phase. Let's only concentrate on the bubbling side. So an event handler input or to the body or to the P tag or the HTML or all of them.
I can say here on the HTML. So say
so you specify
document dot.
No, wait.
Can I say document dot on click?
Document on click will on the document that is HTML.
Then dot attach event on click. Correct?
Yeah.
And then say button dot attach event on click on the button.
Yes. So first in IE it will call your buttons event handler. Now the picture makes more sense. For you have added a on click handler on all these elements. One for input, one for P, one for body, one for HTML. It happens because it happens on the input elements, that is the innermost element. First call the event handler of the button. That will call the event handler of P. Because kind of your event
as well
is bubbling. Okay. Bubbling is from the downward, it's going up. Bubbling.
Okay. So this is like calling the event handler function of each level, basically.
Each level
and each element which is Okay. So from elements to all super elements, it will call the event handler method if it is attached.
If it is. So what browser internally is doing, whenever the click happens, it checks that
capture and bubbling say which direction it is.
No. Forget about capture altogether right now. I will explain what is capture now.
Bubbling is nothing but if so like in Java we call super methods, right? Super.
So okay, no. Let me explain it a little bit more. So where event happens, you got it. The bubbling. The important thing here is you can add handler at any level if you want. Okay, and multiple you can also add. Browser will call in a sequential manner, first for the child, then their parent, and then their parent, in that way. That is called event bubbling, because event is bubbling from the innermost to outermost, and you can cancel also. So you in the event handler you can say, okay, cancel this event, don't bubble further. So there are methods to do that. Okay, now bubbling is clear. So in Mozilla based browsers, what it does is it does two things. First, from the HTML level, on the topmost level, go and the next level element then go to the next level element, and then reaches the final, the innermost element. Yeah, just opposite to what I is doing. That is
change the behavior, we are enforcing the
so that is called capture. When you come from the top, means like from the outermost element to the innermost element, that is the capture phase. So your event propagates from the outermost element to the innermost element. Okay, that is capture phase. And the bubbling phase, your event propagates from your innermost element to outermost element, like a bubble, it goes up. So these are two phases. In Mozilla based browser, both are available. Okay. In IE, only bubbling is there. So that's why this third parameter capture is not there in case of IE. So in Mozilla allows you flexibility. When you want to handle the event, at the capture phase or at the bubbling phase, or even if you want, you can add at the both phases, separate handler. So when you, if you complex application like a drawing or something, there you need more control on your, like, where exactly you want to handle that event. And since you want to handle it at both level, one is the innermost element and also at the topmost element. So this allows you, provides you the flexibility.
The default in Mozilla capture or
default is bubbling, because that is the default of IE. So if you don't specify even, so that is in the bubbling phase. And unless application is Mozilla specific, we don't add any capture based thing. So that those don't allow you to add a event handler in a capture phase, I guess. Unless I some special configuration something. So by default bubbling.
and if only one event handler defined for the button, only for
it will be that one only. So if some event handler is there, it will call that function. Otherwise, it goes on. So that is our okay. 2 slides. Okay, let's quickly. These two special function, timing function within JavaScript, they are very handy. So you can call the function. Say okay. So let's take the first one. Looks like I messed up the code. So timeout goes in the intervals and okay. Timeout. Just look at the code. Don't get the heading. So timeout variable is you are saying call my function and call after this many milliseconds. So like, okay, I'm not ready right now. Call this function after this much time, and then I will take care of it. Like that. You can add it anywhere in the side the JavaScript code. It's not required like you add it at some event handler or anything. You can add anywhere. So like after these many milliseconds, call my function. And thirdly, if you say set interval, it's after many milliseconds, call my this function and keep doing it.
So using this and Ajax like your Facebook and all.
Yes, that's what happening. Your Facebook gets your Gmail gets all your applications because internally it has a setter kind of thing, which is keep getting the messages after those many intervals. It's like method is there, check ratio or something, and after every let's say 100 milliseconds or let's say 1 second is making a call to the server, checking there are some new message getting updated. So they are handy. And you can also cancel once you set, let's say you set some timeout function and then you realize no, I don't need that anymore. So you also clear it. You can just remove it. The only thing you need to provide the same the return value of it. It returns one integer value, some number of, let's say. So you specify the same thing. Similar for the interval thing. And the DOM API. So let's go back to the DOM quick. We had that slide. This one. So L becomes a DOM inside the memory. So your HTML is containing all that. It's like a XML tree kind of thing where every one is organized. And you can access, for example, you want to access from the JavaScript some element. How you do that? So that is the DOM API. You can get a to that DOM element and then change its property, or you can delete that element, add elements below it. So all that is called DOM API. These are like common functions which are available inside JavaScript. So doc is the object DOM which we have seen on that day. There's everything inside the DOM, and the DOM get element by ID. So specify any ID inside any element, you can access it using this, and this will return you a reference to that element, and then you can change any property. Sorry, to element. Okay, and you can for the next is get elements by tag name. So you specify any tag name, let's say img, and it will return an array of element references. So you can change all those elements, and then something called create element. You can create a new element. You can say like document create element, and inside you pass the tag name like div, and whatever reference div or something, div dot this, my dot class name is this, and then use append child. Append child is adding any element inside the DOM tree. Then you say, okay, document append child and whatever my new div. You pass the reference to that newly created thing, and it will be appended to the DOM.
There are like 15 converting.
So
this was
document dot create element, and
yes.
then that element we should pass to append child.
And there
is just create element.
No, it won't work. You have to tell where exactly in the DOM you want to add that element. Okay, and there are a lot of other methods. But
you also say document dot some paragraph and then dot append child, so it will get attached to that paragraph only.
Yes, that's the way. So in append child, you can also specify the parent, or you first get a reference to that element dot paragraph using some dot id or something, and then that element dot append child, that thing. Okay, and the shortcut we have available to the inner the HTML inside any node. So let's say you have a div, and inside that there is a long HTML of, let's say, another div, saying img and all, and to replace all of them in one go. So and for example, you have made a Ajax call, and the response came, a new HTML is available. So simply whatever the element object, the inner HTML, and you can replace in a go. Browser internally will create the DOM and all. So you not to go by one, create a new div, then change everything. You can simply change inner HTML of any element. So inside DOM tree, you can always change whatever is below any node, use HTML. It's always you have to change it in a programmatic way.
So could it be used in those kind of books where on the left hand side you have topics, on the right hand side you have content?
Yeah, that happens.
Yes, so directly, so right hand div, you say div dot inner HTML, and
then the whole thing. So not to do it by JavaScript. That's why I called it a shortcut way. Any?
Thank you so much, Amit.